Hi, this is Natalie with The Fifth Journey, and we're going to be doing more of an advanced soap recipe today, and for several reasons. So number one, we're going to be using beeswax, and number two, we're going to be using beer, and both of those can cause the soap to accelerate and to harden quickly. Now on this, I'm going to be doing a beer, bacon, and beeswax soap. So I've been saving up my bacon grease that has been rendered, and I set this out to soften, but I have been keeping it in the fridge. And whatever extra I need, I will be using lard as that portion of the recipe. And I have my beeswax. This did come from our hives. Now this beeswax, we have, one of our hives is very, very aggressive, so we do have to use the smoke on that one. We don't really like to use the smoke. And the other hives that we are fine, we don't have to, but this one we do. So some of the wax does have a little bit of a smoky scent, and for this it's fine. I don't want to use that wax for lotion bars because you don't want that in there, but with this it'll, you know, burn that off. So anyway, this is 2% of the full recipe. You want to make sure that you run everything through a soap calculator again, and this looks like a lot, but it's just about 3 of these little ones that I have grated up, and I did want to go ahead and grate it. And then I have my beer over here. This is it's Boulevard Bully Porter, so it's a dark beer. And you want to make sure that you boil out the alcohol and make sure that you try to get out as much of the fizz as you can. So what I did is I had boiled this for about 15 minutes and it reduced it by about half, so then I brought it back up to whatever I needed for with distilled water for the amount that I needed. And I am using full water on this just because this can accelerate, this can cause it to harden, and then one of my fragrances that I'm going to be using can be finicky. Now when you are doing this, when you're boiling the beer, it smells bad. I'm not gonna lie. So what I had done is I actually did this in my kitchen, our kitchen upstairs, and it made our house smell like an old bar. It was so bad. So I've done it again with some other beer, and make sure you either do it outside or you do it where you have a vent that actually goes outside, because upstairs our vent just recycles through the house, which isn't good. So anyway, be prepared for that. Okay, and then on my fragrances, I kind of wanted to go with like a, I don't know, a deep earthy kind of smoky scent. So this is the Zanzibar spice, and I've been holding on to this. It's actually discontinued. I love what it smells like. I have not used it, but it's not supposed to cause any issues. But I don't have quite enough. So Christmas spice, this one can cause acceleration. I'm only using a teeny tiny bit. I've only used this in glycerin soap. It can cause problems in cold process. And then I need just a hair more, so I'm going to be using a pumpkin spice. I know that sounds kind of weird, but this is really kind of a, I love what it smells like. It's kind of like like the Turkish mocha, if you know that fragrance, kind of a coffee, chocolatey, spicy, real deep. I really like that one, so hopefully everything will go well there. I'm not going to be adding any colors or anything, so what I'm going to do is, once I get the rest of my oils and everything put together, then I'll go ahead and add the fragrance to the oils so that I can do everything quickly. Hopefully there'll be no issues, but I don't know. We'll see, because we're doing a lot of different things here. And then I'm just going to do a basic honeycomb pattern, so I'll put this on top. I've got my 2 molds ready to go, so this will make 24 bars of soap. And I don't think I have anything else, so we'll come back when it is time to add everything in. I'll go ahead and mix the lye into that with it frozen, because you know it's gonna probably not smell very good. So we'll come back when it is time to mix everything together. And one more little thing, you want to make sure that when you're doing beeswax, and I did do some research, you can use up to 8%, but most people had said to use 2 or 3% because it does reduce lather, and I'm doing 2%. Now it is a wax, but jojoba oil is technically wax, so you do need to rerun it through your calculator. You don't just take your basic one and then throw some beeswax in. So this is a whole new recipe based on some of my other ones that I did. I did up the lard in it because that slows down trace, so I'm hoping that'll kind of balance things out. So anyway, we'll come back when it's time to start mixing. I forgot to say this. When you are doing your beeswax soaps, you have to soap a lot hotter than you normally would. because if you wait for your oils to cool, you cannot soap at room temperature. You have to soap hot because the beeswax will start to harden and it will not be part of the soap. So I've read anywhere between 135 to 170 degrees. I'm going to shoot for maybe the 135, 140 range. We'll kind of keep an eye on it. That's my goal, because the issue with soaping too hot is that it'll burn off your fragrances. So I looked up the fragrances to see kind of what the rate is, because each one does have a rate, a burn off rate. So you want to look that up when you're making soap. So I'm gonna try to soap maybe 135, 140, and also with soaping hotter, it can make things move faster. So that's kind of another thing to keep in mind. And one little superficial thing, if you hear a weird noise in the background, my kids have a rock tumbler going. And this was the only space in the house that wasn't driving us nuts. So hopefully it's almost done. It's been going for like 2 weeks and driving me crazy. So anyway, we'll have that. And I've been making beeswax wraps, so that's why I have this uncovered. To clean up beeswax, if you have a glass top cooktop, it's so easy. You just take a razor blade, scrape it off. But that's why I have this uncovered, because it's a lot easier to scrape that off than use this. Okay, so we'll come back when it is time to start mixing. Let's do this. I have my oils heated up, and this, I did wrap it up, but since it was the ice form, it did cool down a lot faster than anticipated. So this is around 135, this is around 155. So yeah, it is a bigger difference, but once you add them together, it's gonna balance itself out to the 140s-ish. So fingers crossed, let's go, and hopefully everything will move fast. I'll give this a little swirl, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, well, that was almost a disaster. So straight up mashed potatoes in about 2 seconds, and way, way, way fast moving. So I stuck the stick blender in there. I pulsed it maybe 5 seconds, pulled it out because I could see it was thickening up very quickly. Did the spoon, did the whisk for maybe another 5 seconds, and then quickly got them into the mold. Sorry, I had to stop the video because it was a little bit crazy. So I mashed everything in there, put the bubble wrap on there for the honeycomb look, and then used my gloved hands to kind of smush it out the best I could. So it wasn't a total seize, but you know, we'll kind of see what happens. I'm gonna keep an eye on it because with the sugars and the beer, it can cause things to overheat. So I was not planning on putting these in the oven to force gel. I may wait a little bit and kind of see how it looks. If I get like in an hour maybe a partial gel, then I'll pop them in the oven with the light on to go ahead and force it the rest of the way, but I don't want to totally ruin it. Hoping everything will come out fine. Have a bit of a mess to clean up now, but that's kind of the way it goes. But so anyway, that accelerates like the dickens with the beeswax and with the beer and maybe a little bit of the fragrance. Only one of them, and there was only half an ounce of it in 4.8 ounces of fragrance that I needed to use. So, but anyway, that's that, and we'll come back when it is time to cut these, and hopefully everything will cure okay and go okay. So we'll come back. It's about 24 hours later, and we're going to go ahead and cut these. This was not a fun soap to deal with. I do have a partial gel. Yesterday, it got very, very hot, so I actually put one of them in the freezer, and then we ended up with a partial gel, so I was trying to do the oven method of forcing the gel, and I'm going to probably do that again because I do have a partial gel, and that does work pretty good. You basically set your oven to 170 and cycle it on and off, and your soaps will become much darker, more kind of like a translucent, like when you're gelling, and then you take them out and that'll push it all the way through. So as you can see here, I do have that partial gel. Now with this, I do have some floating oils on the bottom, and I went ahead and cut one of them and I zap tested it. It is not lye heavy at all, so those oils, fingers crossed, will absorb back in, so there's a little pocket there. But let me flip it over so you can see there's a little bit of the oil there. There was some there, but that should absorb back in, but you can see that gel ring. So these middle bars will be good, but I'm going to go ahead and cut it. This cutter my husband made me for Christmas, so we'll try it out, but I'll fast forward through all of this. All right, we're done cutting them, and if you can see, there's a couple bars. If you can see on that, there's a little bit of oil there, a little bit there. So I'm going to keep an eye on these to see if that absorbs back in. Hopefully it will, and we'll go from there. Like I said, it's not lye heavy. I did zap test them, that other one. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and trim them up and put them in the oven to force the gel again to try and get that a little bit more even. It's not bad. You can see those lines, but on the outside bars, you can definitely see the color difference on there. And you know, if the oil doesn't absorb back in, then I'll go ahead and rebatch it. They do smell good, so the fragrance came through. I was really concerned with the high temperatures, if that was going to ruin it, but that worked out fine. They're really fun rustic bars, so I got that nice honeycomb look, and I had put the gold mica on there. So like I said, we'll go ahead, trim them up, put them in the oven to force that gel phase. Keep an eye on, make sure that oil goes back in, absorbs back in, and then we will come back for a final look. It's about 2 days later, and I'm just not very happy with how these turned out. They're a lot rougher looking than what I was wanting because it had set up so fast. So we have quite a few of the really rough edges, and there's still some oil on there, and even though they're not lye heavy, I'm just not happy with how they came out. So I'm going to go ahead and do kind of a hybrid of a hot process and a rebatch. So I've got my oils that I'm melting here, and then I'm going to chunk these up pretty small and put them in there. So once everything's melted, I'll put the soap pieces in there, and then I'm just going to let it soak overnight in the oils and come back tomorrow, heat everything up again, and cook these down, kind of like what you would do with a rebatch, and then emulsify it and do a full hot process. So we'll come back tomorrow when we're ready to do that. I chunked everything up and added to the oils. I had actually started this yesterday, but something came up that I had to address, so I basically just turned the heat off and let it sit. So it's kind of partially melted, you can see it there, but I'll go ahead and turn the heat on. I've got a good weekend now, and I'll go ahead and start it, cooking it down, and then I'll come back. Now this process does take longer, so I'm not going to videotape the whole thing. I'll just come back and take little snippets of the process. It's been about an hour, and as you can see, this is melted down quite a bit. I'm going to cook it a little bit longer, then I'll use the stick blender to blend out those pieces. I have not mixed my lye solution yet because I wasn't sure how long this would take, so I'm going to go ahead and mix that now, and then we will come back for the next step. I'm going to go ahead and let this cook for another, about 10-20 minutes, and then I will add in some more fragrance oil and put it into the molds. So we'll call this my nightmare soap, and here we go again. When I was cooking it in the pot, it wasn't really staying evenly warm, and when I put it in the molds, it was cooling very quickly when I was putting it in the slab molds. So I had put it in the oven and tried mushing everything together, but it still was not where it should be. So I got the crock pot out, and I'm doing it this way, and it's been on high for a while. You can see it's a lot smoother. It is a lot easier to move around. And I've already done one mold, but it goes into the mold a lot better than before. So we're going to try this again. And I'm going to go ahead, this is pretty much ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and put this into the loaf molds instead of doing the slab mold, because I'm hoping everything will come together and it'll be time to cut, because I really don't want to waste this soap. I was actually going to do it with the rebatch with the oven bags, but I don't have any more oven bags, so this is why I'm doing it with the crock pot, because that works really well with keeping even heat. But I'll go ahead and put this into the loaf mold. Okay, we're back to we're back to do the second cut of this ridiculous batch of soaps. And I went ahead and obviously did the reprocess twice, back to the crock pot, and doing the slab molds does not work. You need to do a loaf mold. So I did cut one of them, and it's definitely a rustic bar of soap. It does smell good. Not typically the look that I go for, but I know people do love the rustic look. And with the honeycomb pattern, I think that looks pretty neat. I did go ahead and smooth out a little bit of the bottom on these because it's rounded from smushing it into the mold. Let me show you. So if you can kind of see, it is rounded a little bit. So I'll trim off those sides. I went ahead and used my big loaf cutter to give it kind of score marks. So I'm going to use the crinkle cutter to give it the kind of a bumpy look, and then I'm just going to use my fingers to smooth out the edges. So I'll go ahead and cut these. I ended up with the 3 loaves, and then I have a partial loaf that I will cut up into probably 6 bars, so it'll be a little bit thicker. But this is what the bubble wrap looks like as it comes off. So you got that nice honeycomb pattern, and I did go ahead and put some of that gold mica on there since I had already used it originally. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting these up, and then we'll come back for a final look. And I'm glad this batch is done, and I'm not going to do it again.